Hey guys, what's going on? Shaw here, and we are back with another commentary. This one was a popular request from, well, I guess basically my stream, which is where I did this. I asked you guys what dungeon you'd like to see me commentate next, and you guys unanimously said Brackenhide. So here we are. I did do this live on stream, so if you'd like to watch me do keys live ever, you can go follow me there. Link will probably be in the description of the video, but let's kind of dive right in. Now, for this run, we are running Fury Warrior, Marksman Hunter, Feral Druid, as well as Resto Druid. And my routing through here, I think, is a little simpler than a lot of other groups' routes. A lot of people tend to try to either opt to pull more of this area, or they try to do like a little bit different routing with different packs, but our route is fairly hold W. We're going to start off by grabbing the one Bone Crusher, or the fighter at the top of the cliff, and then just jump down into this first like little Tuskar pack. So this is 6 targets. We always commit Weapons of Order and Dampen right away here, just so our healer can kind of get set up. I can kind of get rolling without taking too much damage. There is a good bit of physical damage that'll come out here, but typically by the time the War Scourge starts doing like it's a like little Blade Storm, as well as the fixates that the other mobs do, you're typically super stable. So we're going to actually skip around that patrol there, where oftentimes I'll actually end up pulling it, but in a pre-made group like this, where we are a little bit more like aware of our surroundings, I end up not. So I like this pack a little bit better with the Hunter. All we have to do is be careful about that trap, though, that just got thrown down. And the big thing to look out for here are the Claw Fighters. You'll see them cast that Vicious Claw Mangle, and that's going to be a fixate on any of your party members. Now, you can stun that cast, though you cannot kick it. That fixate, though, will kind of destroy people, and especially early on in the dungeon where you don't have a lot of room to kite, it can be very deadly. Oh, also the fact that it's a bolstering weak. So we're kind of just like chaining stuns here. So I started with a leg sweep, then we went into roar here. That hunter is kind of running up. I get a paralysis on it. Stunning the mobs as they're running away or CCing them will often change the direction they're running in. So if they're running in a weird way, throw like a single target CC on them or something just to keep them kind of tame. Now at this point, we are going to actually skip around and pull through. And the reason for this, and actually I normally don't do this ever, but in the 21, I wanted to play it safe. I don't have a lot of defensives. You can see on my little center HUD, I don't have Weapons of Order, I don't have Dampen. The only thing I have up right now is Black Ox, and as most people know, Black Ox isn't that great of a CD to kind of depend on. And that next pack kind of slaps, the one just to our left, or I guess like the west side of the beach. So we're going to be doing that one next once we have True Shot. And once I have my cooldowns back up. So what's really nice about like True Shot, as well as like Weapons of Order, is that they're on the same cooldown. So I'm going to Ring of Peace, try to keep these mobs relatively stacked, and we're just going to focus on this War Scourge. So now our Fury Warrior with enough cooldown reduction has his CDs up. We also have True Shot Aura. So we're going to be heading into this pack here. This is probably the scariest pack out of all of the, I guess, like Tuskar cages. And the reason why is because you have a Mystic doing a fair bit of magical damage at you. You have a Decay Speaker who's casting Decay Surge. This thing slaps. It's spawning a Totem. You have like a Fixate. And then you also have the War Scourge. So we unfortunately do lose our Feral Druid there. The stun came out, the Stormbolt, a little late on that fighter. But that's alright. The big thing here is making sure we're not getting feared by that Cackle. Unfortunately, it did go off. I somehow managed to survive. I commit a health pot pretty quickly. And then I see this Vicious Claw Mangle, and I'm going to try to CC it. We get the Roar. I guess I didn't have to use Paralysis there. So yeah, the big thing here is like we want to actually be focusing down that Decay Speaker. It's finally coming in. Once you kill the Decay Speaker, holy shit, I'm having like a stroke. The Totem will stop being active. It still exists. It'll still keep you in combat. But if the Decay Speaker is dead, the Totem will no longer be a threat. It's just basically a training dummy. So we're now going to just stack this up and kind of do that. So that was a really messy pull. We had obviously a death. The fear went off. Just kind of a little bit of pandemonium, but that's all right. So next we're going to head to the, I guess, east side of the beach and just do this 4-target pull. I've seen some groups, again, that are a little bit more coordinated or are planning like an invis skip later on. They'll pull in maybe an extra pack here, but this pull by itself is actually like pretty easy. And it's a nice kind of like cooldown recovery pull. Now, luckily, 2 of our classes have like cooldown reduction, and I guess Brewmaster in a way, but Feral Druids have a good bit of cooldown reduction as well as Fury Warrior. So we're going to kind of have CDs every pull. And yeah, once again, you'll see probably this chat pop up on the side of my screen next to my nameplates. I was streaming this, so, you know, check out my stream. Or don't. I don't really care. Going in here, I like to kick the decay speaker. I really can't say that. I like to kick that mob right away so I can stack them up, and then the totem will spawn fairly quickly into combat. So now we're going to be trying to hard focus the totem. That Withering Burst just like destroyed our hunter almost. Now, just a note, the War Scourge can be soothed to stop his cast of that like Blade Storm channel. But if you let it channel, you can definitely stay outside of melee range, and then the tank is also not getting autoed. So that's kind of like pick your poison. If you want to dispel it so people aren't as scary or as scared, that's fine. Oh, I had a 7-sec of the dot on me, so I was kiting there just so I can get dispel. But you can leave it active. Also, it fixates the tank, so if the tank isn't moving, it shouldn't be that dangerous of a mob. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And then this next pull will be a little bit more tame. We don't have a lot of our CDs available here. This is kind of why I don't like using Twitch VODs, because I got to change that overlay now that I think about it. I think we're going to end up getting the patrol here, if I remember correctly. But it won't be a big deal outside of the fact that it's going to bolster up a bunch. Now, okay, one trinket I decided to run in this dungeon is the Dreadplate slab, or whatever it's called. The one, it's like from the first boss of the raid. Oh yeah, so this stuff's going to get super bolstered. And it's so hard to tell if it's good. I don't think it is, but honestly, the damage from it's about 2 to 3% of my damage from a trinket, which is kind of meh. But the thing is, the absorb value, or like the healing that it does, or the damage it mitigates, doesn't show up on the meters. So I don't actually know how much it's really mitigating. And then basically I am using, when it comes to like cooldowns, I'm basically using like Dampen Harm and or Fort Brew almost every other pack as they come up. So I think here I should be saving Dampen for the next pull, because the next pull is going to be pretty scary. And with just one guy left, we're now waiting just to free the Tuskar. That Bloody Bite will randomly go on sometimes like melee members. I thought it was supposed to be a tank poster, but there it hit our warrior. Honestly, healers just need to heal through it. Oh, and someone body pulled this. Holy shit, I'm just now remembering how scuffed this run was. So we get the double rake, and then I'm going to try to kick here, and then I'm going far. All three of us kicked, actually. And then our hunter kicked the next one, but we're going to need one more kick, most likely. So here, again, we have Weapons of Order, we have Dampen Harm active as well, and then we went into our Exploding Keg, kind of like burst. And now I'm trying to bring him closer so I don't go crazy, and then I'll get the kick just to get this Mystic in. This is not intended. We did not mean for this to happen. This was kind of just a body pull. And I'm not really sure how it got pulled. Looking back, our warrior had 3 stacks of that bleed. Again, big thing here is those Vicious Claw Mangles. Making sure you have some AoE stops for them. You can try to wait till multiple of them cast at the same time so you can like be really efficient with your CC. If not, just keep rotating. Big old Leonard. Now, there are some kind of debates on which ad or which boss here you'll target first. Now, personally, we like to target Trick Totem, but I've also seen Gashtooth be a fine target. The thing about this fight, though, that a lot of people I don't think realize is similar to the Overgrown Ancient back from Algothar Academy. This boss's heal is static. It does not scale with key level. So if you miss the kick or you let the heal go off, it's really not going to be the end of the world. What's really going to kill your group is the Earth Bolts overlapping with other mechanics like the Bleed or the Blade Storm. So kicking the heal isn't always the biggest priority. Here we let it go off and I instantly bled off Purge it. We also have a Hunter, luckily enough, for a Trank Shot. Now, if you don't have a Purge, of course, if you let it go off, obviously you won't be able to remove the heal over time effect. But at the end of the day, it's only going to be 300 to 400k of healing. And if it means that you're stopping the Earth Bolts and then no one's dying, oh well, the fight takes a little bit longer, but the heal is not something to really stress about. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So now after that, we like to prioritize Gashtooth here. In the future, if you're ever being fixated by Gashtooth, our warrior just stayed in melee and like let him auto himself in the back. So best case scenario, like you don't have to necessarily outrun it, but it's better to at least face the mob so you have at least maybe a little bit more chance of survival. But because because Gashtooth is still up, I am going to get Decayed Senses here. It's going to be a quick dispel from my healer, and then I'm going to want to make sure I'm soaking this giant arrow, which isn't there. Now, our hunter says he's going to feign, but he greeted, and it still ended up hitting me. I used Zen Med. That's a really good time for Zen Med because I'm not being melee by anything else. If Gashtooth was still up, I wouldn't have been able to Zen Med there. At least it would have been a very, very tight window. But those are kind of the times where you can and should use Zen Meditation, is when you're not going to be meleeed, so it's not going to get broken right away. And then, of course, we're going right. There is no reason to ever go left. The trash is relatively overtuned, and it's very annoying to group up. Unless you're maybe playing a Blood Death Knights, or you have a healer who just likes, you know, like really hates themselves, I would never go to the left. And then we're just pulling basically for the rest of the dungeon, like rest of this like path going up to the boss. We're just going to kind of double everything up. We're making sure we're stopping as many casts as possible. Watching my gameplay too here, I am not playing that well in terms of Charred Passions and Rushing Jade Wind. I'm letting a lot of them fall off, actually quite frequently. So here we're going to grab this Patrolling Oak. The reason why I like grabbing the Oak is because he's a good percent. He doesn't really hit hard. He has one cast on like a 30-second cooldown, or maybe even longer than that. That's just an AoE frontal. And he spawns Lashers, which is just free funnel. So it's really good for taking down specific mobs. On non-fort weeks, I typically will try to chain him into other pulls. But on a bolstering week, I'm just trying not to do that when things are low. I can't remember if we pulled the Oak in once we finished the Elder, but I can't remember. I think we're just going to play it safe. I've been farming this dungeon so much in the last like 24 hours that I don't remember what I did in this run. I think we just do this natty. Yep, that Necrotic Breath is the cast you need to look out for. If you're not going to kick it, just don't be in front of him. That's like the biggest thing. I see so many pug groups wipe to that frontal breath, mostly because they don't kick it, and because they don't kick it, and they don't move, they just get actually obliterated. Here we're committing, it's a slightly bigger pull. We're committing things like Weapons of Order and Dampen Harm. The totem spawned. I am going to have Touch of Death for it, so it should go down pretty quickly here. I'm spamming Touch of Death. It finally came up. Everyone does have one disease, though. I got rooted. I ended up getting dispelled here, I think, because I didn't have Tiger's List available. And then on the next pull, I'm probably going to commit Fortifying Brew, if I remember correctly. I'll dispel my warrior in a second. He's at 5 stacks currently. At least I think. Nah, it's going to fall off. We're fine. And then we're going to pull back because I don't want to accidentally pull that Rot Slinger guy in the back and him spawn a totem in the poop. So standing in this like toxic sludge on the ground will do damage to you. So if you ever pull this Rot Slinger, you want to make sure he's not next to one of those toxic pools, because if the totem spawns and your melee run into it, they're just going to be taking extra damage. I think we ended up body pulling there. I think our healer was a little close, but it's not a big deal. I was going to pull him anyways, and there's not a lot of stuff in this pack that's going to bolster. So here the totem did spawn, but I'm taking a lot of damage. So I decide to kite while my DPS try to finish off that totem. I go for the ring. I can diffuse, but I'm not really taking a lot of magical damage right now, so it would be kind of a waste. I end up diffusing anyways, doesn't fucking matter. YOLO. But like right here, Breath of Fire was just like, or at least Charred Passions wasn't active. But I do have a nice fat Celestia Brew, just in case that happens again. One thing I'm starting to notice as a Brewmaster Monk, though, once I'm like in like 21s, 22s, is that running double offensive trinket, or at least not a shit defensive trinket, has been really, really brutal. So I'm in the process of farming Brackenhide now and Neltharian Lair, and I'll probably be doing that for the rest of the week, if I'm being honest. We've gotten 21s mostly across the board, a few 22s. I'd like to push a little bit further, but there's just some pulls that are actually wrecking me. So if you're looking to have extra survivability, I recommend looking for 3 specific trinkets. Treehide's Festering Splinter from this dungeon in particular is really good. You also have trinkets like Talisman of the Cragshaper and Shard of Rockmore from Neltharian's Lair. So all 3 of those trinkets are pretty strong in terms of mitigation. They don't provide you a lot of damage, but they will keep you alive, and Brewmasters just kind of pump as it is. So you don't necessarily need more damage. And unlike a Blood Death Knight, we don't have the most insane kit when it comes to healing, so having like a little extra DR is just always really strong. Just to keep in mind, the lashers that the tree or the oak spawn can get bolstered, but they don't bolster anything. But if they spawn after it dies or as it dies, they don't go away. They stay there. Our Feral Druid has 3 bleeds. He pops a defensive. We're chilling. We don't have much here. We want to make sure we're kicking Burst of Decay. Burst of Decay does a ton of damage, and now the totem is active as well. I choose to dispel my healer because then that allows my healer to kind of focus on keeping me alive and keeping our group alive. And then I'll typically dispel myself next. I say shit like that, and then I don't. I ended up dispelling our Feral Druid, and I have 5 seconds of this dot. So I dispel myself now, and then we're going to basically pull all the way up to pretty much Treemouth's room. I want to grab everything here. But again, Charred Passions is not active. I was playing so poorly this night. Now Rushing Shade Wind is inactive. Oh man, it's triggering me so much. Anyways, this pull, again, very simple. The big thing for a tank is making sure you're trying to keep as much threat on as many lashers as you can. There isn't really a race to kill the lashers. They occasionally apply this bleed, but the name of the game is like allowing those lashers to grant your DPS funnel. So if you can leave them up to increase single target damage, that's really good. If not, it's just basically free pad. Another reason why I think DPS players kind of like this dungeon, as long as the tank pool is big enough every time. And then we just have a general's kick priority on these oaks. While the frontals are pretty easy to dodge and they're fairly telegraphed, just having a kick rotation makes it so we don't have to even worry about it. And when I say kick rotation, I mean we just have a kick assigned. I'm assigned to Star, and then I think it was our Hunter assigned to Purple, I think it was. Treemouth went from being one of my least favorite bosses to being one of my most favorite bosses out of all of the dungeon pool. Originally, this guy's spell queuing was really awkward. He kept basically barraging you as a tank as well as your group with just a ton of mechanics at a time, on top of also requiring people to soak, a really annoying knock, a really annoying like kind of grasp. This first set that always spawns, I like to commit Exploding Keg to it, and then I try to ring a piece them away. And the reason I do this is so they don't die underneath the boss, so I take less damage. When they die underneath the boss, the tank will be kind of stuck in it, so you're not only going to be taking damage from Consume, but also taking damage from the dot on the ground, which is really annoying. It's only really for the first set that's bad for. Every set after that is going to be fine. And then the other big thing is making sure you're AoE CCing these slimes whenever they're casting that Gushing Ooze. And yeah, so I just kind of keep him towards the middle of the room just so I don't get knocked out and accidentally reset the boss. Decaying Spray, I recommend keeping as close to the boss as possible so the tank has an easier time keeping threat. And I'm going to just aim this towards the outside of the room and we're just straight chilling. Now, tanks technically can soak more than one in a row, as long as they're good about using their defensives, but we're going to actually use, or actually not use, but we're going to allow our Fury Warrior to soak this next one. Fury Warriors have great defenses for it. They also have a good bit of leech if they need to with their Bloodthirst, and should be able to actually damage this down pretty quickly. The faster you break through the shield, the faster the dot goes away on that player as well. I'm going to roll back in. Leg Sweep. Oh, Leg Sweep wasn't up. I lied. We got the Roar. Nice. Those swirls, by the way, when those ads spawn, are very scary. Never get hit by them. Here's the Leg Sweep, and we're chilling. And we're basically going for kill. Touch of Death, and we're good to go. I don't know if they fixed this guy. There was a problem with him for a while where he would, if he targeted the tank and disoriented you with his Stinkbreath, it would, when tanks are disoriented, for those who don't know, you are, the mobs ignore you. They just stop, like threat doesn't matter for the time you're disoriented for, and they'll go and start hitting other people. Disorients can be really frustrating, especially on this mob in particular, as well as, there's one other boss that does it. The name is escaping me. It's this season, there's a disorient, and it's really obnoxious, but basically you don't want it to happen. I think they fixed it, because I think I got disoriented here. We did taunts, but I don't think he actually would have went to hit anyone else. But here we go. Our druid is going to taunt for me, and then I'm going to taunt back, and she's going to shadow meld. And now we're looking good. We should be able to kill before the next Stinkbreath during this whirlwind. And while it looks like we're at a lot of trash, we're at 85.2. We're going to be skipping most of it. We're going to go around the edge. This is a common pug strategy now. I think a lot of groups are also adapting it. A lot of this trash in the center is just really, really, really deadly, and it's not very fun to pull. So we're kind of waiting for that patrol to start heading downhill so we have enough room to skip by. And the idea is you want to run right at these roots and then jump again. Just like that. We are going to grab these vultures because they're flying overhead. I do pull them, they are in the route, but sometimes they're just, because they patrol, they're sometimes like in a weird spot. If you hang out on this bridge for a little bit, you're typically fine. And then a decision that we kind of decided to do on the fly was to actually pull these into boss with lust. This is something that I've started to kind of adapt even in pug runs, because if you run this route specifically and you lust first boss, you'll typically have lust up by this point, especially with how much trash we're basically skipping between Treemouth and here. That pulling it in is just really, really efficient. The vultures don't really do anything. The bear has a tank frontal, or not tank frontal, but a tank buster. But honestly, most tanks should be pretty okay handling that physical damage. And yeah. With Lust and CDs, we were able to just annihilate that, that group. And then essentially we want to kind of drag the boss close enough where we can hit these hyenas, but not close enough where we're going to get meleeed by them. Another thing that I'm noticing, this is a very min-max thing that I need to fix about my gameplay, is the way that I'm positioning myself while running a frontal trinket. So I am currently playing Mark of Dargirl from Neltharion Lair, which sends out a random frontal shockwave AoE in front of me has chance per melee hit. And it happens quite frequently, but what's happening in this key is that I'm missing a ton because I'm not facing the mobs. So I'm missing out on a lot of damage. So I think my damage at the end of the key is actually going to be lower than I would have liked it to. But, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. And now at this point, we're looking real good. We have only 14% trash left. I'm going to be grabbing this collar, and I'm going to be trying to grab these little witherlings, as they're called. Now, unfortunately, they kind of have a fervent strike, and for those who remember or played back in the day, back in earlier Shadowlands, fervent strikes were a big problem, where if the tank was out of range of a mob, they would randomly cast at another nearby melee. And that's what's happening here with our Feral Druid. He had a bleed on him, and that bleed is supposed to go on the tank, at least according to the tooltip, but it doesn't seem like it does all that often. So as a tank, you want to make sure you're looking out for that. They can also be stunned on their cast, and if they're stunned on their cast, well, then they won't recast it for a little bit. So one even went on our Hunter there, which was really strange, and then I'm going to chain into this War Scourge. Now, we, at this point, have decided that we're not going to 2-chest, so let's just kill this War Scourge by himself, not to try to, do anything super risky. Raystorm, once again, follows the tank, so if the tank stands still, then it won't move. Just stay outside of melee range. If you have a Soothe in your class, or, in your group, you can send it. Just know that that might push up the Hideous Cackle spell queuing a little bit faster. So if you're going to Soothe, make sure you're watching for the kick. It is possible to skip a lot of this stuff without Mind Soothing your group, and that's what we're doing. I'm going to pull this. We're going to get kick on 1. Unfortunately, this is why I hate playing with Feral Druids, because they constantly stun stuff, so I wasn't able to stack them up as I'd like. Also, their Rotting Surge channel here spawns these orbs on the ground. Not orbs, but I guess like pools. If you can stop it with a knock, displacement, CC, I highly recommend doing it. You want to avoid the void space. You want to try to have as much room as possible on this hill because it would really suck to body pull stuff. And yeah, that's that pull. That pull that we also just did, there is a cauldron there, so I think anyone who has alchemy can reach in and grab a poison or a disease dispel, which is super convenient. But with our comp, we don't really need one. There is one in this pull, but only one will ever go out at a time, and I can handle that by myself. If I was smart, I would have pulled in that padding War Scourge, but I end up not. It was just a decision I ended up making kind of in the moment. I was like, I'm going to just let it pad into us later. And that was kind of unfortunate. We luckily were able to get that mob down before it changed, so it doesn't have bolstering anymore. But this mob being bolstered isn't really a big issue. This Withering Contagion cast is really important to, stop. If you can, the way you stop it is by melding, feigning, vanishing, and viz. If you can't stop it, you want to spread out from other people before it expires, and then once it expires, it turns into a new debuff that will spread, and it's a dispellable disease. So then you just want someone with detox, or, remove disease to do that. This will give us just about percent, we're about 1% over, but that's okay. We had that body pull earlier on. Typically we pull this pack off to our right, but we have plenty of room here. Now there is a safe spot for this boss up against those mushrooms. You'll see our hunter and our rested druid standing there in a bit. But for now, we're just chilling. Now, the way I like to do this is bait the first choking rock cloud into the wall, and then we go to the right adjacent corner. This will force the totem to spawn in the rotting choke cloud. Holy crap, I cannot talk. And that puts us in like a perfect position to just burst the totem down with as much room as possible. Next, we're going to sidestep a little bit to the left, and this will put Wratheye's totem over in that new corner right after the decay strike. And as you can see, our hunter's up in that corner. That is a perfect safe spot for him. We just want to spread on Rotting Decay. I end up using Touch of Death on that totem. And now we're going to basically rinse and repeat. Though for the rest of the phase, what I'm basically going to do is instead I'm going to always go to the opposite corner from where our hunter is spawning. And that will make the Rot Cloud or the Rotburst totem extremely, extremely consistent. Which, at least in pug groups, having a consistent spot that you can always spawn it in is really good. Unfortunately, I'm bad. I just rolled into that little circle on the ground, which gave me a debuff. But it's not going to be a big deal. So as soon as we kill that totem, we're going to the, again, far left corner. The totems always spawn on the opposite side of the room. Now, I don't need to drag him this far if I didn't want to, but I just did. You basically just want him just past the center of the room on whichever side you want the opposite side of the totem. The room side that you want holy fuck, I'm done. You basically want to always keep him on the opposite end of the room that you want the totem to spawn in. There we go. We nailed it. First try. And that's just it. It's just a kind of a simple back and forth. Decay Strike comes out. So Decay Strike is physical damage, but it applies an absorption. So it's good to try to save a couple of, expel harm stacks for this. Your healer should also just be, paying attention. That's also a fine way to counter it. Celestial Brew will overlap the, absorb. It won't get rid of it, but it at least gives you kind of like a buffer. So Brewmaster is actually really, really strong for this fight. I'm still sitting on Fort Brew. Fort Brew is kind of really weak here, but I think we might end up using it at some point. And at 15% health, I want to say we do one more totem. No, we for sure tunnel here. And that's game. And that was our 21 Brackenhide. I don't remember what this was ranked at the time. It was pretty decent, but nothing like I would say was impressive. But that's how my group did it. My damage was a little low. In a lot of Brackenhide runs with a very similar route, I typically am about at 100k, so not very proud of my performance. There were a few times I had to kite. There were a lot of times where I dropped Charred Passions and then went into a spinning crane kick. There was a lot of times I dropped Rushing Jade Wind, so not even close to the perfect play, but that's my general route for this place. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you ever want to watch me live, check me out over on Twitch. This is the next key that we will be getting into. In the next video, we'll be going through my 21 Vortex Pinnacle as well on Fort Week. So if you're looking out for that, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Anyways, I hope you guys are all having a great night or day or wherever you're at in the world, and I will catch you all very soon. Peace.